Uh,
What if I do the same thing this time and I go, "Welcome to JKMoto podcast," and then I just hesitate for a long time?
I mean, you could do that if you want. I don't know if that's best for our view durations and audience retention, but whatever.
Well, I can go. Welcome to JKMoto podcast. I'm your host Cole, joined by Easton. Two different climates, two different sides of the country, and then you take it away.
We are here to bring you every single motorcycle related topic for your average everyday rider, racer, track day goer, whatever you might be. We're here for you. It's the off season for most people in America, so we're here to talk about that and make sure everyone's kind of getting ready for the on season.
Yeah, it's important to get ready for the on season. And to help you with that, today, our guest is the president of the Utah Sportbike Association, USBA.
Hell yeah.
To talk about the upcoming season, 2024. There's been a lot of changes made out here in Utah, and it'll be interesting to talk to him, see if we can get some inside information on what's going on and what to look forward to.
Yeah, and before we roll that intro, just want to say real quick, if you're here for the podcast, great. Make sure you click the subscribe button down below on the YouTube channel or click follow, download, whatever it might be for your podcast platform. We're on many platforms. Also, if you're just listening, we do YouTube. Go check out the YouTube channel. We got more than just a podcast on there. Check out some other videos. Subscribe to the channel. Throw some likes on our videos. We appreciate it. Also, really love the feedback, comments. Love it. So, should we roll an intro?
Roll the intro.
Yesterday at one point, I was in sixth. Miles an hour.
On the podcast today, we have, as promised, David Meyer. Is it Meyer or Meyer?
Meyer.
David Meyer, the president of the Utah Sportbike Association, or USBA. Promise that we got the new season. It's right around the corner. Easton, you wouldn't believe it with the weather that the two of us have been dealing with.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that. How much snow did you get in the last 24 hours?
I'm around 12 inches. How about you, Dave?
Not too much at my house, but Alta is my thing in the off season when we're not racing, and they've gotten. I think at one point it was 25 inches in the last 24 hours. So
That's pretty
sustained inch-an-hour storms are the ones I like.
Not bad.
A little late this year, but better late than never, I guess.
That's right. Yep.
So we want to jump right into it for the people that are listening before they tune out. We want to get them the information that they want, and then we'll chit chat some more on the back. But so 2024 season's right around the corner. Let's start with, so we've talked about it quite a bit on this podcast, but last year we were limited to the West track only, and this year it looks like you got 2 days on the East on the schedule. Can you talk about what's made that possible and why we weren't?
We do, yeah. So for this year, we're getting back on the UMC East track, and we're going back to a 2-day race format, and we'll have 5 rounds. You can find the schedule on our Facebook page right now. It should be up on our website pretty soon. Yeah, as I think people understand, running a club with volunteers is a lot of work, and we don't always get stuff done and as quickly as we'd like or as quickly as our members would like. But just want everybody to know that we're working hard. Priorities for the past little bit here have been our elections, which we just had, and getting the schedule set and getting the air fence project complete. Really, we had to have that complete before we can go back on the East track. So
yeah, I think air fence is a hot topic.
Yeah, I'll get to air fence in a minute. There's a lot to talk about there, but yeah, we've been working hard. My good friend Scott Ryberic has always said he was president of our club before, and he's a very good mentor and help to me. And he's always said that the off season is the busiest time for a club like us. And once the racing starts, things calm down a little bit in a way, and I'm definitely finding that to be true. So Yeah, and maybe I'll take a quick step back and just introduce myself so people kind of
Oh,
know who I am and where I'm coming from. David Meyer. I was recently elected president of the Utah SBA. Before that, I was the sponsorship manager for the club. Been racing here in Utah since our track opened in 2006. I've loved motorcycles for as long as I can remember. I've been riding sport bikes on the street for a long, long time. When I heard about Miller Motorsports Park track, I immediately bought a Gixxer 1000 and got out on the track. It was great to be able to get the most out of a bike like that in a safer and more controlled environment. I'm probably guilty of riding like an idiot on the street before that happened, and I was able to get it out of my system on the track. I still ride on the street quite a bit. My current street bike is an Aprilia Tuono, which is an awesome bike. But ever since I started riding the track, I've become a much safer and smarter street rider. So, we can talk about a lot of stuff tonight, but one of my main crusades, I guess you'll call it, getting people to understand that UMC track is still out there in Tooele, super close to Salt Lake. A lot of people just don't know it's there. And not only is it there, but it's pretty easy to get on the track. We have a lot of programs, and our partner Apex Track Days has a lot of programs to help people get on the track. And once you get a taste of it and see it's not quite as intimidating as you might think. Yeah, the more you can ride on the track, I feel the safer it is on the streets for everybody. So that's a big focus for us. Getting back to the schedule, talked about that a little bit. One of the big things that we needed to do to enable us to get back on the UMC East track is procure a whole new batch of air fence. Air fence is very important to the safety of our riders and our members. Whether it's on a track day or a race day, all of us have partnered together to procure the air fence that we need to safely go back on the East track. There was air fence that we had for a long time, but this stuff doesn't last forever. And a lot of it got past its usable life. So it's something that we had to deal with, and it's not an easy issue. The air fence itself is expensive. Deploying it and storing it is a process that's
Is
pretty
that
involved.
so? Just real quick, sorry not to interrupt too much, but as a not super versed person, which I'm pretty aware of what air fence is, but some people might not be. Quick question: one, what is air fence? And then two, to me, I've always kind of wondered: is that something that the clubs are responsible for putting up, or is that something that the track takes care of? Like, does that take a trained professional, or is that?
So there's a couple different types of air fence. There's an inflatable type, which is almost like a big, giant industrial strength air bed that you need an air compressor to blow it up, and then you put it up against the Armco or up against the concrete wall that's in the impact zone of certain areas of the track. Um, the use and who puts it up and who's responsible for it varies a lot by track and by organization. I don't know of too many tracks that provide that anymore, and so we've had a lot of discussions with UMC and Apex Track Days, and really the huge help has been John Ulrich and the Road Racing World Action Fund, who's providing us the air fence. And yeah, we're the user of the facility, and it's our users and our riders that it's their safety. So when I was elected, that was my big thing: is we got to get this air fence solved. So we started working on it, and we dug in, and we've done a big fundraiser and raised a lot of money. And in terms of kind of the details, I can go into a little bit of detail here of what everybody's been doing on that. So as I said, air fence is a very important safety issue for us. The blow up type, the inflatable type I mentioned, the kind that we're using is actually not inflatable. It's a permanent covered pad, if you will, that
Okay.
goes up against the Armco. And so it's pretty big and bulky to handle, which we need storage for it then. We've been working hard with our partners, and I'm happy to say that the new air fence is on order now with Road Racing World. through the Road Racing World Action Fund. Apex Track Days, I mentioned, they've been the track day provider here in Utah for a very long time. They're going to be using it for their events also. And so they've been helping out a ton. They've made a substantial financial donation to the effort. They helped us run the VIP Track Day fundraiser that we did back in October that raised a lot of money towards the cause. They're providing multiple Connex containers for us to store the air fence in on site at the track. And they're also partnering with us on the deployment process. So before the weekend, we have to go put the air fence up. You don't really want to leave it out there. It gets cooked in the sun, and if cars crash into it, it can be ruined. So, there's a lot of layers to owning and using air fence, and so that's Apex has been a great partner. I also want to mention Garrett Potter, who's the general manager at UMC. He's been helping out a ton. So they've donated to the cause by way of a very deep discount that they gave us on the VIP track day that we ran in October. And we're going to be running those every year going forward. They've provided us the use of some pretty big vehicles and flatbed trailers to help with deployment. Those are resources that the track owns. They're allowing us to place the multiple Connex containers on site. They're designated folks from their side to be air fence managers to help oversee the deployment and recovery of it. Garrett's leading some revisions that we're making to the deployment process to make that quicker and more efficient for everybody. So, just want to give a huge shout out to Garrett and the UMC staff for their part of what they're doing for this. And then finally, John Ulrich at Road Racing World Action Fund. As I mentioned, we've been working with him for some time on this, advice on what type of air fence to use. John's committed, and he's sending us what we need and providing us with very supportive pricing and payment terms through the Action Fund. We're going to have a press release coming out pretty soon here with some publicity for UMC and USBA in Road Racing World in the next few weeks. But yeah, it's been one of the issues that's caused me some stress. Like, we're promising to go back on the East track, and we need the air fence to do that. And
right.
The clock is ticking on getting it here and getting the payments for it. And yeah, everybody's really come together, especially our donors to the effort. I'm humbled by the outpouring of support that we've had from our members and people beyond the club to support this project. So definitely want to say a big thanks to everyone who's donated so far. And, if you're listening to this and you'd like to donate, please reach out to us at airfence@utahsba.com.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I'll have links down to USBA, World Action Fund in general, air fence, like your emails. We'll have links down in the description. Please go check those out.
Beautiful.
Especially, if you're racing with USBA, you enjoy doing that. It's important to give back to the anyway.
The club.
The cause. That's
safety.
good. Yeah,
it's everyone's safety. Look, John, I've had many phone calls and meetings with John Ulrich, and he's been at this air fence stuff probably longer than anybody. The other day, he told me that this is his crusade, is to help get as much air fence out into our industry and our tracks and our clubs as possible, because it makes a big difference. It's just so important for everybody's safety that it's a big focus. So yeah, we're making great progress on that. And again, super, super psyched from all the support that we've gotten so far. And it's going to be an ongoing effort, because we're going to want to, have a fund in place to replace air fence as needed going forward into the future. So it's just something that we're going to do for the foreseeable future. And I feel good about it, because it's the right thing to do. And it's, again, a big safety issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Dave, if you don't mind, so I've never raced with USBA. I know Cole, just did his first season ever with you guys, but at me, as someone that hasn't, maybe a couple other people that haven't, we did have someone specifically reach out to us that'll be moving out to Utah soon and looking to race with you guys. Could we start with like breaking down the just class structure in general? I've got the rule book here in front of me. There's a lot of classes.
Yeah.
Is there an easy organization to that?
Let me add to that. As somebody that just went through it, for last year, as somebody that just went through it, it can seem a little bit overwhelming your first year. or what you have to do to your bike and what classes you can go in and what classes you can't. Once you get there and get your feet wet and see it, it's really simple. But we try to help the people that are looking at it from the outside, and it's just kind of overwhelming. Our goal also is to remind everybody there's a track here in Utah, and
everywhere, but definitely in
The
Utah
good one,
also.
the good one. The one in Utah is pretty good too.
It is. It is.
So there are classes for just about every bike that you could want to race. Had our rule change meeting a little while back, and so there was a couple of rule changes proposed and approved that, that's the next thing on my list, is to finish processing all that and revise our rule book for 24 and get that out, released out to the general public. So that's coming soon. Stand by. It's not going to be huge differences from the 2023 classes and rules. So you can start with that, which is on our website that you mentioned. And yeah, you definitely want to read the rule book. And if we take a step back, even from, what bike and what classes can I do, what I try to tell new people is try to think of the big picture and think of your season, and pick a couple of classes to focus on. Don't try to do every class that your bike is legal for, because you're going to be 5, 6, 7 races in a day, which gets to be a lot and quite expensive with tires, especially on the bigger bikes. So think about kind of what you want your goals to be in a first season. I can suggest some goals for new folks, because I was new at one point, and my guidance and input to a new racer would be, number one, have fun. It's not hard once you get out there. It's so fun. Try to have a budget and stick to your budget, so you don't upset other people in your life. If you can get some sponsors to help out, that's helpful too. But yeah, try to figure, a big picture of how much you think you're going to spend per round. Entry fees, tires, fuel, bike parts, oil changes, garage rental. We're so lucky that the track has such beautiful garage facilities that we can rent. Put in a little extra money for that, because it's definitely worth it. Don't try to go out and win the season on the first lap. Ride within your ability. And my strategy for a long time has been that I'm always trying to do small incremental improvements and go a little bit faster, a little bit at a time. And I've found that helps you crash less. And if you crash less, you have a better time. It's less expensive. You don't get hurt. Your wife doesn't get mad at you, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely think about the big picture, and please forward people to us. You can have them email board@utahsba.com and let us know that you're new and you want to get involved. We're having a new track rider seminar at Moto United on March 9th. We just finalized the date for that. So Moto United South Valley, March 9th, we'll be going through. We've done this for the last couple years, and it's a long seminar format answer to your question, like, how do I get information and how do I figure out what to do to get involved? So we cover all of that stuff at that seminar. Put that on your calendar, March 9th at Moto United South Valley.
March 9th.
March 9th, yep. So we also have, and we're working on formalizing this, but we have right now kind of an informal mentor program. So again, if you reach out to the board and say, hey, I'm looking to get involved, I'd love to have kind of a mentor to help me, we will figure out kind of, who you are, what type of person you are, what type of bike you have, and get you set up with someone that's in the club, maybe even someone on the board that's been doing this for a long time that can really help you. There's a fair amount of scar tissue that you get from doing this sport. After I've been doing it for a while, I say, if I had known everything I know now when I started, it would have been a lot easier, cheaper, more fun, less crashing. And that's our goal, right? Is going back to Scott Rybaric again, and one of his kind of main tenets for the whole club is we want to take people into the warm embrace of our club and help them get into the sport and have a good experience, because it's very easy for people to say, hey, I'd love to try this, and they go out there and nobody said make sure you check your tire pressure before you go out on the track, and they go out with 40 pounds of air in their tire and crash, and they don't have a good time, and they don't come back. And I don't blame them. Like, it's really hard when this sport is bad to you. It's tough. You get hurt, and it's expensive, and it's frustrating. So we really want to try and help people get past that learning curve, and try and hand over a lot of the scar tissue that we've all had, and help you get there quicker and easier and have a good time. And therefore that's all selfish on our part. We want you to stay as a member and a rider for as long as possible. And so we're happy to help with that.
Good deal. So if I ask you real quick, maybe we just run down the list and give me, a quick brief few words on each of these classes, what you would describe that as.
Sure.
Just based off of, I'm just kind of curious. It's like reading a rule book is very daunting, which is what we all should do. I agree. Everyone should go read the rule book, but it's so daunting. Hoping maybe we can kind of settle a few questions here. So your first two, you got your Deseret Dash, Novice GTO, and Expert GTO. If you could give a couple words on each of those, how would you describe those classes?
Sure. So the GT classes, if anything that says GT in it, is an open spec of a bike, where you could have like a bike called a Kramer at this point. It never was meant to be a street bike. A lot of our classes, like you'll get to Open Superbike, Open Super Stock, those are more, it has to be a street legal bike that was manufactured in, large numbers. So the GT classes can be very less restricted on the modifications that you could do to the bike, and no requirement that it was ever a legal street bike.
Okay.
So a couple other terms that we can define here. GTU is GT under, which is a smaller displacement, like a 600. GTO is over displacement, so a bigger bike like a 1000 cc. That's the difference between GTO and GTU.
Is there a specific CC for that?
It varies by class, and
Okay.
you'll see more detail further into the rule book on, now there's triples like the Triumph triple and V-twins. And so we have specific rules for each one of those different bikes, air cooled versus liquid cooled, 2-stroke versus 4-stroke. There's a lot of bikes out there, and, we try to simplify the rule book as much as possible, but there has to be some complexity in there to kind of account for all the different bikes and try to keep things as fair as possible. So GTO and GTU is referring to the size, the displacement. Novice and Expert, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. But when you first join us, and there's an event, I think it's April 20th is our first what we call the NRC, which is our new rider certification class, and that's a one-day event that you have to go to get your novice race license. And so once you go through our NRC process, again, that's an education and a safety event. So we want everyone to understand the ground rules and etiquette of how to get on the track and how to race safely. So once you graduate,
let me jump in there, just to point out for those that don't know, the NRC, which I thought stood for New Racers Are Cool, that is combined with a track day, correct?
Correct.
It is not just classroom. It's a day of riding.
Yeah, I heard pretty busy too.
We've had great turnout for that class in the last couple of years. I think last year we had 30 something. The year before that, it might have even been 35. And that's important for the club, right? I mean, I think at the end here, we're going to talk about the general state of the club, but it's very important for us. The average lifespan of a racer is about 3 years before you get, crash a couple times and use your credit card to fix your bike, and your wife or significant other is getting tired of the process. So if 3 years is the limit, we need to have new people coming into the club all the time. Some of them, like me, will stick and keep doing it forever because we're crazy that way. But it's very important for us as a club to bring in new blood and new riders. And that NRC class is one of the big milestones in bringing people in and getting them to be part of the club. So, as you said, Cole, it's a classroom and track. We have very good instructors. Alex Zanayach, AZ, is our director of schools, and so he runs that program. And we're certified by the Yamaha YCRS, Yamaha Champions Riding School. We use their curriculum for our art class, and that trickles into a lot of the NRC stuff. So it's a lot of classroom instruction of, like we said, process and procedure, how to be safe out on the track, etiquette, how not to crash into each other and keep everybody safe. And so there's classroom sessions, and then there's riding sessions throughout the day. We actually buy one of the 15-minute sessions from Apex Track Days, and that's just the NRC folks. And then at the end of the day, we have a mock race, which is really cool, where you go out and grid up, and you do a mock start and do one lap, come around, grid up again, and do another start, and then have like a 4-lap, I think it's a 4-lap race. So really, after all the instruction and riding and talking, we want to put you into the actual race environment and racing each other. And the first time you go down into turn one with 12 or 14 or 20 people around you, it's like the coolest thing ever, but it could be sensory overload. And we want to put people through that a couple times in the class and make sure people are able to handle that and not do anything dumb and crash everybody out. And so, yeah, once you get through that class, then kind of back to your question about classes and stuff, you get a novice race license with us.
All right, real quick on that before we move through the next classes. I'm over here in South Carolina, Dave. If I get my license with WERA and I'm running, I've been novice for 2 years over here, or maybe I'm already running expert over here, and I happen to move into Utah, what does that process look like for me?
So we do have reciprocity with all the other major clubs. We'll accept licenses from other clubs under reciprocity.
Okay.
So if you have a novice license with other clubs, you can come here, and we would love for you to buy our license and use that as reciprocity other places. But we're easy. We try to make it as easy as possible and be as friendly as possible.
Sweet.
To the members. So you can use reciprocity that way. There's been a number of people, including me, that raced for a while and made their way up to an expert level and then took some time off for whatever reason. So I myself took 10 years off to get married and have some kids and start the family. And after 10 years, I decided to go back to racing, and I asked the club, do I come back as a novice or an expert? Because I've got all this experience, but I have a long time off. So technically, if you've been off for, I think, 2 years, we want you to come back as a novice. But we've actually, you can petition the board and ask us if you've got a lot of experience and feel like you're ready to be an expert. Talk to us. We'll make an exception if it's warranted. We probably want to ride with you. We'll probably want to have AZ ride with you and have you take the NRC class and just observe you and make sure that you're not going to be a menace. But like for me, I would rather have been the slow guy in the fast group. That's another topic, going back to the question of classes. So after you've raced as a novice for a while, a couple of ways to graduate up to expert, a couple of the classes, Novice GTO, and a couple other classes. If you come in the top 3, you're automatically graduated up to expert. And again, you can always petition the board and say, my lap times are more in the expert category. I feel like I'm ready to move up. And yeah, I mean, another piece of advice I can give is it's always good to ride with people that are faster than you, because that's how you get faster yourself. So, you can sandbag if you want, but people are going to know you're sandbagging. And we actually have little sandbag awards that we give out
You saying I get a trophy if I do it? Well,
You can get a trophy for sandbagging for
I'm
sure.
faster and I get a trophy. Man, I'm gonna do it. That sounds
Someone
easy.
has a T-shirt that says "Track Day Winner." That might be Legion. But yeah, you can do that if you want. But again, if you're serious about kind of progressing your skills and getting faster and moving up the grid and proving your results, definitely try to ride with faster groups because that helps you a lot.
Sweet. All right, so we got novice and expert defined. That's based off of basically your experience. I know there's a few more things to get into that, but if you're just starting out, you're going to come in as a novice and you'll learn from there.
Yep.
I don't think we need to dive into that too much more. We got GT versus your superbike and super stock, and we got O versus U. So moving through, I'm looking. You got your Deseret Dash, and then what is the Deseret Dash specifically? Those are both GTOs, but what is the Deseret Dash?
Yeah, Desert Dash is just the name of a class that we have, which is open to both novice and expert. And it's Utah. This Deseret term is in Utah, and that was here before me. And I don't know exactly what it is, but it's just a class that we've had for a long time, and it's kind of a catch-all GT class.
Okay. All right. So if you want to run it, run it.
Correct.
Okay.
Run with
Gotcha.
your own class is what it is.
Because
Yeah.
the rules are pretty open in terms of what you can ride in there.
All right. Good deal. So next we're moving into, you got a street GP and a super street bike. Those sound pretty similar, and I think these are pretty unique as far as I know.
Kind of similar, but not exactly. So Street GP is a very important program for us. It is our put your toe in the water of racing class. Our Street GP program on race day is kind of an abbreviated version of the NRC class, where AZ and our team of instructors walk you through procedures and processes and safety and etiquette and how to get on the track. There's a couple of classroom sessions in the morning on the race day. There's a couple of practice sessions that Street GP participants can do. And then before lunch on race day, we have the Street GP class, which is kind of like that mock race that we do in the NRC program. There's no points, there's no season championship, but it's I think it's $100 to get in that, and we give them away. If you're interested in trying out racing, trying out getting on the track, reach out to us, and we have the drug dealer model there. The first one is free because we want to get people to experience it and see how cool it is. And we've had a great conversion rate of people that have done Street GP, and they get hooked just like we hope, and they move into the NRC and the novice group the following year usually. So again, Street GP is really our put your toe in the water and try out racing class and program. And it's also been very successful for us in the last couple of years, helping us bring new members into the club, new racers. Again, very important for the health and viability of the club in general. So that Street GP program is really important to us. And yeah, it's really good.
Sweet. Yeah, and also just real quick, I did notice on your website you do have a specific spot for that. So I would direct anyone that listens to this, wants to maybe get into racing, not quite sure about it yet, go check out UtahSBA.com. Scroll down, click on the Superbike tab, scroll down. They got Street GP. Kind of tell you a little bit more about it. So what's different between that and your super street bike?
Right. So super street bike is you have to have a novice license at least to run in that class.
Okay.
And that's kind of a next step from Street GP up to full racing, where the rules for that class are that you need to be able to put your bike back to street legal trim in like 10 or 15 minutes. I forget exactly how much. So it doesn't have to be a full race bike. And in fact, we don't want full race bikes in that class. It's more of a, here's my street bike that's heading more towards being a race bike, and I want to take the next step towards racing. And that's the super street class.
So if I have an extra set of wheels and a flashlight, can I run slicks and race fairings?
You can.
In that class?
Yep.
Okay.
As long as you can put the other stuff back on it in 15 minutes.
All right.
You can have helpers for that too, so it doesn't have to just be you.
Yeah, and then you're gonna get one of them sandbag awards, buddy.
Yeah, another one.
Hey, I wasn't asking for a friend. You know,
He already
asking for a
got
friend.
one. He's going to get another one.
All right, so that's a super street. Able to put the bike back to a street legal trim within 10 minutes. Sweet. But you do need a license for that one. So it's not just for
Yep.
your track day goers. You do need
go
a
through
license
the
for that.
NRC and get your novice license and
Sweet.
bring your bike through tech.
All right, we're making our way through here. Next, you got Production 500 and then Sportsman.
Prod 500 is just a smaller displacement. It's got to be 500 cc's or less, and more or less production rules. You can't do a ton to the motor. Sportsman is another novice/beginner class. I think I'd put that one like one step above Super Street, so continuing the progression into novice racing.
Okay. Good deal. And then we have our Novice GTU and GTO. I think we pretty much already covered those.
Yep.
That's gonna be over what 600 cc's. I guess it depends on what the bike is.
Yep.
Or the under. So essentially your 600s and your 1000s.
Correct.
And then your combined GTU, GTO. What does the combined mean in those?
So the combined classes are combined novice and expert.
Okay.
And the combined class, if you're an expert racer and you race in combined GTO, you cannot also then race in KOM, which is King of the Mountains, which is our premier class. So the combined GTO is one more stepping stone up the ladder towards that premier class of KOM.
Okay, got it. So you're still running a novice license maybe, or maybe you just got your expert license. You're not quite ready to hop up with the super big boys. You want to sit right there in, so they kind of mix the middle. It's a B class, if you will.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And now we have a modern vintage, which is an oxymoron. So that's a little confusing. What are those guys?
Yes, modern vintage is bikes that are 10 years old or older.
Okay.
You know,
is there a limit on how old it can be? Like, can I show up with something from the 30s?
There's actually no limit to how old it can be. The limit would come in tech inspection and making sure that bike holds its oil and has all the right race parts on it that make it legal to go out racing on the track. But
in the 30s, they weren't designed to hold their oil ever.
You just continually add to it, and you're good to go.
Right. But that class is again, if you're doing that class, you cannot do KOM. So that's another stepping stone up the ladder towards KOM.
Okay, so that's a little question there, mostly for.
Sorry. I went back one. I'm talking about modern vintage. We're on to modern vintage.
Okay. All right.
The thing I wanted to say about modern vintage is that, you know, a 10-year-old R6 now is a weapon. A 10-year-old BMW S1000 RR is still pretty formidable bike. So we've talked about
He's talking about me now. See,
another way to sandbag. We've talked about changing the age limit on that. Yeah, I don't think we're going to change it this year. So if you have a bike that's 10 years old, that's a pretty modern.
I mean, that's your newest generation R1s are now coming into that picture. So
pretty up to date bike. That could be an interesting class for you.
You're talking an age limit on bikes. You were talking about changing it.
We're not changing it this year.
Understood, but that's what was discussed.
It was discussed, yeah.
Because I was thinking you were talking about age, and I just figured I'm good either way.
Well, there's age too. There's a class you're going to get to called Formula 40, which there's Formula 40 GTO and GTU, and those are for obviously guys that are 40 years or older. And
some would tell you that's the fastest class. Others might tell you it's the slowest. Believe
it or not, that's one of our most competitive classes. A lot of our really fast guys are a little bit older in the club. And,
I learned that firsthand this year. A couple times, actually.
Yeah.
All right, so modern vintage, the bike's got to be old, which isn't that old. So if you've got a bike that you think's pretty sweet, and it might fit into that class, and you might be up against some stuff that isn't quite where your bike is with how new we're getting. So sweet. That's modern vintage. All right, moving down, you get a Moto 3 and a Moto 2. Are we bringing MotoGP into USBA?
Those are the types of classes. Yep. So Moto 3 is a smaller bike. I forget exactly what the displacements are, but call it a 400 or lower, single cylinder. Moto 2 is a middleweight, so your 600 classic 600 sport bikes. Triumph 765 will be allowed in that class this year.
So what would you say the difference for me, because I need help all the time? What would you say the difference of the Moto 2 class versus just a GTU class?
Like a novice GTU, I guess.
So Moto 2 is an expert class, and I believe you're allowed more modifications to the equipment in Moto 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is I'm starting to get it now. So your novice classes almost look like they have kind of a novice name to them. And then your expert classes are named, like your Moto 2, Moto 3 are both going to be an expert class. Your Stock 1000 is an expert class.
Correct.
Your lightweight superbike, your middleweight superbike, middleweight superstock, and then I would assume open is open. So I don't know about that. We'll get into that. Okay. Anyway, so that's Moto 3. Moto 2, you're looking at smaller bikes. Moto 3 being the real small boys. I think he said 400 cc's. That makes sense because that would be that Ninja 400 kind of being the cutoff there. So next up, we got Stock 1000 and then lightweight superbike.
Yep. So Stock 1000, our rules are in alignment with the Moto America Stock 1000 class. No wheels. Try and keep the motor modifications to, I believe you can do thinner head gasket and adjustable cam timing, but nothing else inside the motor. So sticking towards the Moto America version of Stock 1000. And that's intended for people that want to try and make their way up through our club into Stock 1000 to get some experience on that type of equipment. And that's usually a pretty competitive class also.
Okay. And then lightweight superbike?
Lightweight superbike is like middleweight. No, lightweight. It's lightweight bikes that have, whenever something says superbike, that means you can modify quite a bit.
Okay.
So you can change the insides of the motor, wheels, suspension, all kinds of stuff. And all those details are in the rule book.
Okay. And then we've got open twins. The favorite of the world currently.
Yeah. Ducati twins are coming back. If you get into the details of the rules for that class, the triples are allowed within certain spec. And so, yeah, it's a twins class. And there's a couple other bikes allowed in there also.
So this is basically where you're going to find your RS660s, your R7s, your CBR 650s, Ninja 650s. Do the Ninja 400 boys kind of play up and mess around there, or do they just stay away from it?
You can certainly ride up in that class.
Okay.
It's the Indian and the arrow in this sport, I like to say. So, you could have a Shane Turpin type person on a 400, and I'm not going to have anything for him on my R1 probably.
Right. Good deal.
Maybe.
All right, so there's the twins. So really the rule there is the rule book will go into more detail, but if you have a twin, that's the spot for you, right? So parallel twin bikes,
correct.
That's where it's at.
Yep.
No V twins in there though.
Oh, there's V twins. Yeah, that's
okay.
You're allowed V twins in there.
Okay, sweet. Next up, we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but the Formula 40 GTU GTO. What is
just
what
the
does
age
that mean?
limit? You got to be 40 years or older for that class.
A 40-year-old bike?
No, 40-year-old rider.
They allow those guys to race?
Come on, take it easy now.
I'm about to be 53, so if I don't want to exclude myself, we got to keep allowing these older guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I only talk so much about it because most of them, all of them, honestly, every time I get on the track, I get someone that's much older than myself that is definitely way better than I am. So I don't actually have room to talk. Experience goes a long ways out there, but you gotta pass the shade around where you can,
Yeah, and look, everybody, your comment makes me think of something else, right? Is like everyone's on their own path and their own journey in this sport. And I've been just completely destroyed on the track by a 16-year-old kid on a 300 race bike, where I said, The straightaway is coming up on my 1000. I'm going to get back to this kid on the straightaway. And I didn't. My good friend Kevin is 70 years old. I just got up to his pace in the last year or two. He's still very fast. I have a good friend who's a paraplegic who has special controls on his bike. The first time I went on the track, he flew by me like I was tied to a post. So, there's a lot to this sport. There's a lot of equipment and your ability. And, like you said, the longer people have been in it and the longer they've been on the journey, usually the faster and better they're getting at it. There's people that start off and pick it up right away and they're immediately fast. So, I find the challenge with those people is to talk them down a little bit and calm them down a little bit, because the new guy that comes out that's really fast, sometimes we see those are a lot of crashes from that guy. So
and sometimes they end up in that 3-year category
that's what we don't want, right? So, again, I'll take another opportunity to tell you guys what I think, what my mantra and what I would recommend to other people is just try to go for this small incremental improvements every time you're out on the track. Take training. YCRS is awesome. We got coaching, local coaching here. AZ does a lot of great coaching here in Utah. The AZ Riding Academy. Ken Hill podcast is an awesome resource. There's tons of resources out there to help you with rider training and development. And it takes people a long time to realize sometimes that it's better to invest in that type of thing than a $5,000 motor build, because it's
you don't need more power in your
the
bike.
gray matter up here, what's in between your ears, is a big part of the lap time too.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. That was Formula 40, both GTU and GTO. So your age matters, and they've got it for the big bikes, small bikes. All right. You had a middleweight, both superbike and super stock.
So middleweight is going to be your 600cc ballpark category. Superbike is normally less restrictive. So a superbike, you can put a longer swing arm, you can change the ECU, a lot of motor work, internal motor work. And a superbike, whenever you see that word superbike on a class, it's much less restrictive on what you can do to the bike. What was the other one you just mentioned?
Just the middleweight super stock, which I'm going to take a guess is much like the super bike, but with restrictions on what you can do to it.
Usually no motor work. So relatively stock motor, other couple little details you can read in the rule book, but it's a little bit more restrictive, i.e. less expensive when you're building your bike.
Okay. Sweet. Okay, so that's your middleweight superbike, super stock. Then we have an open super stock and superbike, which I think I can take that one. It's going to be the same as the middleweight, but for the bigger bikes.
For the 1000cc bikes.
Sweet.
You got it.
All right, and then finally down to our last two, we've got the King of the Mountain GTU and the King of the Mountain GTO, which we kind of already touched on a little bit, but if you want to just sum those up for us real quick.
Sure. So that's our premier class. That's the class that we give the number plate for. So if you want to get the number one plate for our club, KOM GTO is the class that determines that. Our KOM classes are also double the distance. So our normal race distance for all the other classes is 7 laps. The KOM race is 14 laps. Again, that's why we have kind of the ladder system building up to that, because 14 laps in the Utah summer when it's 95 degrees out is there's a big fitness component to that too, which is great, right? That's a big part of our sport also, is your fitness, physical and mental. For people that are on the journey and they're working their way up through the ranks, KOM could be a good goal to have. Definitely put some thought and effort into your physical fitness program, because again, that 14 laps is longer than you think once you get out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can attest to that, and I haven't ridden it. I just watched it, and that was a lot. My physical fitness walking up the stairs once and then sitting there watching it was bad enough. So if you think you're going to go out there and ride a bike after sitting around for a few years,
look, you do get in the zone. I mean, once you get out there and you start getting in the rhythm of the track and the laps are going by, you get in the zone. But if if you're in the zone and you have to battle somebody and they're pretty equally matched, then the fitness is really a factor, because you can push a little harder and put the pressure on the person and make them make a mistake, or vice versa. Every little bit counts at that point. The bike setup, your mental state, your fitness, it's all coming into play at that point.
Right. Absolutely.
You don't want to be at lap 12 gas trying to still hold on and make the right decisions.
Yeah.
I want to be feeling my best on lap 12. So
Right.
My fitness program is all geared around cycling in the summer, cycling in the elevation and the heat here in Utah. The distance of my rides is a lot of times geared around that 14 lap time period, and hoping that when we get to lap 12, I'm still feeling good and ready to fight.
Right.
Yeah. Save it all for the last. Sweet. Well, that wraps up all of the classes. Hopefully, you guys listening that are looking into USBA found that a little bit, at least quick definitions. It is all in the rule book. You got to go read the rule book, but hopefully that kind of helps bring some simple words to the rule book, if you will.
Don't be shy. Reach out to us if you're reading it and you have questions and you're wondering, like, what bike should I get? I'm thinking about getting this bike. Which classes is it legal for? Just send an email to board@UtahSBA, and one of us will get back and help you.
Sweet. Good deal. Awesome. Well, I think
I got the next topic.
Yeah, sweet. That's what I was gonna ask.
So I don't know how much you're ready to talk about or not talk about, but we are moving to 2-day racing. I'd like to dig into that some if we could.
Sure. A couple years ago, 5-6 years ago, the industry goes up and down, and the participation in the industry goes up and down. And I think we were at kind of a low point for both us and the track in general. And we had a couple of bad years financially. We were back doing 2-day racing back then. And, the club, frankly, almost went out of business. And so this is about 2019. We were thinking, what can we do to survive and kind of put ourselves in a better financial position and make sure the club is still viable going forward. And so we decided to fall back to 1-day racing, because we thought by condensing things into 1 day, it would just be financially better for us. And so we were about to launch that, and that was the year that COVID hit. And so we were like, oh man, we're already on the ropes, and now COVID, and nobody's going to want to do anything during COVID. And, believe it or not, that was one of our best years, because the MRA in Colorado, which is a version of the motorcycle club racing over in Colorado, they were having some drama, and some folks that came over from there to race with us. California was shut down, way worse than Utah during COVID. So a lot of people from California that couldn't do anything over there came to Utah to race with us. And so, falling back to 1-day racing and those other actually benefits of COVID helped us. And we made a huge recovery financially. We've debated going back to 2-day racing every year since then. My feeling is that we want to continue to grow the sport in Utah, and there's a couple ways to do that. We have to do a better job marketing ourselves to the local population here, which we have a lot going on with that. But we also want to try to draw people from around the region. So the Intermountain West, Canada, to me, it's harder to justify a trip to Utah for only 1 day of racing if you have to drive, 12, 14 hours to get here. That was a big thing for me to go back to 2 days, because we want to draw people from around the region. So that was a big part of it. The track has partnered with us extensively to help us, share the risk a little bit in going back to 2-day racing. So that relationship that we have with UMC is very important to all of us on a lot of levels, air fence and safety, and just, being on the same page with the people at the venue is critical. And, the 2-day racing is also a little bit of support and partnership from the track to help us do that. So, we, as I said, we debate that decision for every year since I've been involved here for the past 5 or 6 years. And this year we decided the conditions are right and the time is right that we're going to go back to 2-day format.
So I will support that. I'll be there. But I do have, what do you think I know the decision's been made. What do you think the split was? I've experienced both at other facilities, and I have some opinions on it, but
so we actually, a couple of years ago, we did a survey of the membership and asked people, tell us your opinion and your thoughts, just like you're asking now of do you like 1-day or 2-day format? And it was almost exactly 50-50, the opinions and the thoughts that we heard back. And so we got that data, and that's one of the reasons that we did not go back to 2-day racing for the last couple of years, because we wanted to be safe and conservative and stick with what was working. To your question though, I think you can do a 1-day version of our program. You can just do a Saturday, or you can just do a Sunday. There's going to be racing and practices on both days.
But what if I'm going after a championship?
You can pick the classes that only run on those days.
That's what I want. That's leading into what I wanted to get into also.
Yeah. So there isn't going to be a class that you have to run both days to get points for the whole season. We're going to be splitting the classes and format around that concept. The other thing is that there's always going to be an Apex track day on the Friday before our race weekend. So again, for someone that's thinking about traveling from a long distance, they can actually make it a 3-day riding event. They can do Friday track day, Saturday, Sunday racing.
That's a lot of tires.
They could do, well, then you have to drive home and get to work the next week, right? So you could come and do the Friday track day and Saturday racing, and then, sleep in on Sunday and drive home on Sunday. So we've tried to make it flexible and appealing to all different types of people. But again, kind of getting back to the core of the question of 2-day racing, I think we want to go back to that to try and draw more people from around the region and make it a worthwhile trip for a 2 or a 3-day event. And, with the support of the track and the way things have been going for us, we think this is the right time to go back to that 2-day format.
Okay. So I know you said schedule's available on Facebook right now and should be available on the website soon. And are you looking at splitting like east and west, or is a weekend going to be dedicated to a side?
Yeah, so each weekend will be dedicated to a track configuration. So round 1 will be Apex Track Day on West, Utah SBA Racing Saturday and Sunday on the West track.
Okay.
And vice versa. Then some weekends will be the East track. The actual race day schedule and the format of what classes are when is the next thing on my list. So now that we got the schedule, the dates set, and the air fence is pretty much there, the next big thing is to work out the race day schedule. So stay tuned for that. That should be out in the next couple weeks here.
Okay. Can you tell us, I know that schedule is not out yet, but can you tell us, so currently, or last year, on a Saturday, you had a full schedule that covered all the classes that we just spoke about. Are you going to have less races in a day? How is the classes? How is it going to be 2 full days without doing the same class?
Good question. So we're changing the class structure a little bit. That's still to be finalized. We're going to take a little bit of time pressure off of the schedule, because in that Saturday 1-day racing, you probably realize there's a lot packed into that one day. In terms of race day operations, we didn't have any problem because our race director was great, PK was great, and the track people are great, and we didn't have a ton of crashers this year, knock on wood. So things ran pretty smoothly. But with that Saturday schedule packed with so many classes, running right one after the other, if we had any big events that threw things off schedule, it could get ugly towards the end of the day, maybe have to cancel or shorten races. Again, that didn't happen, but with that 1 day schedule, everything's packed into 1 day, and you run the risk of that. So, like I said, we're working on the format, but some of the highlights I can give you, we're going to be making it a little bit less condensed. So trying to pack a few less things into each day. We're going to be adding some classes, probably an endurance class in at least 2 of the rounds. We are going to have qualifying for 1 or 2 additional classes beyond just KOM, because right now, last year we only had qualifying for KOM. So there'll be another class, maybe 2 that have qualifying for them. We're going to probably add another set of practice sessions on Saturday morning, maybe break out the qualifying into its own session. So the one class for the championship that you will have to probably try to be there on both days is KOM. So we'll have KOM qualifying on Saturday, and the KOM race will be on Sunday.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you couldn't just show up for Sunday and start from the back. It's a 14-lap race. If you're fast, you're going to be there in the front after a couple laps, probably. Anthony Norton.
I wasn't going to say it.
He started from the pit lane last year and beat me. That was a fun one. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that makes
All
sense.
right.
I'm excited to see that schedule come out. Like I said, I'll be there as many days as you open the track to me. But
Yeah.
Do you think, you said you've been talking about doing this 2-day thing for a few years now. Do you think that's something that if this year doesn't go well, I mean, over here praying and hoping that it goes great and we could just keep it going and more people come out, not trying to put any badness there, bad vibes, as the people say
juju
nowadays.
in the universe.
Yeah, juju, yeah. But if it just turned out to kind of just not work, or you saw numbers come down because of it, or too many complaints, is that something we would shy away from, move back, or we're going to try it out for at least 3 years, or what's kind of your take there?
It's a very good question. And, I was just elected president for the beginning of, so January here is the beginning of my first term, which is 2 years. My plan is to keep going here for this year and next year and do everything we can to ensure the financial health and viability of the club. It comes down to that, right? We're not going to do anything to hopefully put ourselves out of business. If we get killed on 2-day racing this year, we're going to have a healthy debate and maybe fall back to 1 day next year. And it depends on us and all of us to do a good job of promoting ourselves and promoting the sport and promoting the track and getting more people out to our races so that we have enough people entering and paying the entry fees that we break even on the rental of the track or make a couple bucks, and life is good. If we have 30 people showing up for a 2-day race round, we're not going to last long if that's the scenario. So everybody that's listening to this, come out and bring a friend, and we'll have 2-day racing for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So speaking of bringing a friend, if I had a significant other or a friend that's not into motorcycles or just doesn't ride, maybe likes motorcycles a lot or something like that, is there anything that other people can do to help out USBA?
For sure. We always need volunteers. And so any kind of volunteer work that you can bring people to do, you'll get credits towards your registration. So we say volunteer, but there's actually compensation for it.
Okay.
We need all kinds of people on a race day. The track provides a lot of people, but we need a lot of people volunteering in all kinds of different capacities to make the day happen. And so if you have someone or you're interested in volunteering yourself, again, reach out to board@utahsba.com. We also run Supermoto. I think we'll get into that topic a little bit more here, probably. We always need volunteers for Supermoto, corner workers, grid marshal, people like that. Someone to just run the barbecue at the end of the day.
Barbecue.
So,
do I have to have a license for that, Dave?
No.
Oh, okay.
You do not. No.
Oh, this guy. Well, Go ahead.
Well, it's just another joke about the barbecue. I'm like, do you kick someone out if they come and burn all the meat?
If they burn all the hot dogs, you're not going to be asked to come back and take that volunteer position again, probably.
All right. So if you know you can't cook,
We'll
don't volunteer for the barbecue.
If that happens, we'll make you the starter. How about that?
Well, let's segue. Let's use that segue to go into Supermoto. I know that you participate or are there on Sundays. I have not made it there on a Sunday to check that out. So tell us all about it.
Yeah, Supermoto is really cool. Also, we're very lucky that UMC has a go-kart track that is a world-class venue in its own right, on the same level as the big track. Right? I mean, our big track is awesome. Our go-kart track is equally as awesome, and the facilities on that side of the venue are great also. And so, to start with, we have a very great venue in UMC and the go-kart track to run our Supermoto program. Supermoto in general, if people don't know, it's basically put smaller wheels and slick tires on a dirt bike. 450 motocross is a great platform to start with. There's a couple of partners in town here. Toxic Moto Racing is Jeff Rydalch, a good friend of mine. He runs Toxic, and he is excellent Supermoto resource. He actually supports the National AMA Supermoto Series. He's the Michelin, and why can't I think of the race tech? Metzler. Sorry. He's the Metzler tire vendor for Supermoto. He's also our Pirelli vendor on the big track. But for Supermoto, a lot of us like to run the Metzlers. And so if you're looking to get into Supermoto, again, give us an email, and we'll help you kind of understand the rule book on that side. And there's a bunch of different ways to get into that. You can do the sportsman class, which actually doesn't require different wheels. So you could just put a less knobby-ish tire on your dirt bike and come out and test it out. We're in talks with the track, with UMC this year, for them to run some open practice days. We're hoping like Thursday evenings every week, you'll be able to go practice on your Supermoto bike on the go-kart track out there.
Okay.
And then, there's companies like Warp 9 that make wheels that are specific to that application. And I will tell you that I've had just as much fun on my 450 Supermoto bike on the go-kart track as I've had on the big track. And we have all kinds of classes on that side for the kids. So my kids do it. All the littler bikes for the kids can be converted to Supermoto also. There's a whole big class now for ovales. You guys know what an ovale is?
Absolutely.
So we do. Yeah.
Mini, so much fun. And so we have
ovale. Your ovales run with your Supermoto day or classes?
They run on the Supermoto on the go-kart track, yep.
Okay.
Mostly asphalt only. So on the Supermoto format, there are classes that are asphalt only, and then there's classes that go in the dirt section. We actually just worked with the track in the fall on fixing up and doing some improvements to the dirt section. So if you've been here before, you're going to come back and see a much better, cleaner dirt section, more fun dirt section to our track. Potentially more improvements to come from the track on that. Again, depending if we have a lot of people coming out and that side of the series is financially viable, we have some more money to invest into the facilities. We're going to work with the track on making the dirt section even better, but it's pretty good now. So again, we're lucky to have this venue and our relationship with the track. But yeah, Supermoto is it's quite a bit less expensive than the big track. Those bikes crash pretty well, I can tell you from my own experience on the go-kart track itself and the dirt section. I can tell you they crash pretty good on both of those.
Is that what do you mean by that, Dave? Does that mean that they crash easily, or that your credit card's less hurt afterward?
The second thing that you said. I mean,
okay. All right.
The crashing usually comes down to the rider, right? So if you forget to check your tire pressure and you go out there with 40 pounds in your back tire, you may be headed for the ground soon. But yeah, I mean, look,
it's a dirt bike. You know, ghost ride it and it'll be fine. Dust it off.
bend the handlebars back and get back out there.
Yeah. Zip ties.
So that the schedule plan for that is still Sundays, just like always.
It's going to be Sundays. It's going to be off weekends, though, right? Because we used to run it on the same weekend when we had 1 day racing. But now that we're back to 2 day on the big track, the Supermoto is separate weekends. And so that schedule was also released on our Facebook page recently. You can find it out there. I believe that's 6 rounds. And that'll be up on our website soon also.
Okay. I didn't catch that part. That makes sense. I thought that was going to be a busy Sunday. You had.
Yeah,
but both
You're
sides
gonna need some more volunteers.
And look, we're doing a 5-round series on the big track on the Superbike, and that's a big part of the reason that we're doing 5 instead of 6, because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of weekends out there. Our volunteers, we love them. We don't want to burn them out. Our board, we don't want to burn ourselves out as a board, and so since we are going back to 2 day, we had a lengthy debate and all agreed that. It's better to do a 5-round season instead of 6. If it goes great and things run smoothly and we don't have a big air fence project to do next year and we're feeling ambitious, we could go back to 6 or even 7 rounds on road racing in future years. But we're already making a big step forward with going back to the East track and getting back to 2 day racing. So
yeah, we don't got to do it all in one. So let me ask about the kids, though, in the Supermoto. You mentioned kids. What's the youngest kid you can throw on a Supermoto track?
I had my daughter out there when she was 7. Forget the age limit in the rule book. I should know that, but it's in the rule book. But, yeah, pretty young. You can get them out there pretty young on a PW50. In our Supermoto, there's also kids class, novice, and expert. So you can petition and work your way up through those classes. We have some kids that are doing really well that have petitioned to ride up into the novice adult classes. On a case by case, we're willing to think about that. So we had one boy, Parker Buss, this past year, did a Moto America round in the Mini Cup, did his Ovale here with us in the novice class, and he did great. And so, yeah, it's so fun to watch the kids. And back to volunteering. If you know anybody that wants to volunteer, it's really fun to be out there as a corner worker in Supermoto, watching the kids go around and battling out with each other and getting better and better every race. It's super fun to watch the progression.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a bad joke. You mentioned drugs earlier, and I was like, keep them away from drugs by giving them a different drug, Get the kids addicted early.
Look, I had a friend recently tell me that was their plan. They got their kids hooked on skiing and motorcycles, hoping they wouldn't have money for drugs. And
it'll work.
It didn't pan out that way for that particular person, but we can continue to try that strategy.
I was from the skiing,
Yeah.
It was this is a motorcycle podcast. That doesn't happen here. It was from the skiing.
Right.
That's good. All right. Well,
so do you have any idea when the awards banquet is scheduled for? You haven't released that yet, have you?
That is another topic that's coming up. We have our board meeting this week on Wednesday, and that's one of the main topics because we definitely need to get that scheduled. We have the awards, the medals, and the plaques are ordered. That's usually the kind of the long pole in the tent on planning that event is the lead time for the medals and the awards. So that's in process. Another great thing that came from our relationship with the track is that Garrett offered us to use the clubhouse out at the track for our awards this year. They have that thing winterized right now. We usually have our awards in February. It might be early March, but it's probably going to be at the track in the clubhouse. Again, thanks to Garrett and UMC for helping us with that. And stay tuned. We should have the date here in the next little bit.
So you keep mentioning the board, Dave. How does I know like we, as a club member, if you own a license there, you pay your dues, whatever that might be. You get to vote for your board members, board president, and all that, I believe, right?
Correct.
So the board meetings, is that something that like it's just the board, or if someone else wanted to show up at least to listen, are they allowed to put in input, or is that really kind of, nope, you voted for us, we're going to take care of you?
So I believe our bylaws say that it's open to anybody that wants to attend.
Okay.
We have not promoted that, to be honest with you, because it's a lot to cover, and kind of the second thing that you said, you elected us to run the club, so we're going to run the club. But yeah, technically to the bylaws, if anybody wants to attend a board meeting, just again send an email to that email board@utahsba.com. We usually do them in person. That attendance might be Zoom, so there's usually a Zoom component to our meetings, and yeah, we're totally open to having people Zoom into those meetings.
Okay. So you're welcome to be there, but also be aware that there's a lot to cover, and the more minds and mouths and not ears there are there, the less easy that becomes. So.
Correct. Correct.
All right. Well, I understand that. So, all right. I didn't have a whole lot else on USBA specifically. Cole, you got anything else on that?
Yeah, well, I think if you just, I mean, do you want to give an overall state of the? I know we've touched on it a couple times, but if you want to give an overall state of the USBA as you see it.
Yeah, I think the state of the club is great right now. We've worked really hard on our relationship with the track, with UMC. I think that's in a really good place. We actually just had a meeting last week with some of the board and Garrett and his staff and all of our major sponsors of the club to get together and talk about what all we can do to help promote each other. And the main theme of that, Apex Track Days was there also. The main theme of that goes back to the two things I said at the beginning. Let's just make sure people understand the track is still out there, and it's pretty easy to get on the track in your car or your motorcycle through an Apex Track Days or a Utah SBA or the Supermoto side of things. It's easy to get on the track, and so. Generally the state of the club is good and getting better based on those things that we're working on in promotional side of things. Financially, we have some money in the bank. As I said, we were close to death a couple of years ago. We made a miraculous recovery. The one-day racing, leadership of the club in recent years has really done a great job of putting us in a pretty good financial position, right? Like, we don't have millions of dollars where we can do whatever we want, and if we make big mistakes, it doesn't matter. But we have a decent cushion in the bank, so we're not impending doom right now, which is that's nice for everybody, especially me. Less stress. I don't want to ruin it for everybody. So the fact that there's some money in the bank, if we have a couple of bad rounds, we're going to survive and bounce back. The relationship with the track I keep talking about, it's great, and I think getting better all the time. Our improved schedule we talked about, going back to 2-day racing, is huge. I think it's going to bring people from around the region. Our partnership with our sponsors. So before I was president, I was the sponsorship manager, and actually very proud of the group of sponsors that we've built up. And a lot of them are going on 3, 4, 5, some of them 10 years of supporting of the club. So you can find them on our website. My cliche there, my saying is, support those that support us, right? Our sponsors are a big part of the reason that our entry fees are relatively low. If it wasn't for the sponsorship revenue that's coming in from that side, we would have to charge more to every person on registration to make ends meet. So, support those that support us. Go do business with our sponsors. And when you're there, tell them thanks for supporting the Utah SBA. And boy, our club actually does that. I mean, I've been talking about that for 3 years in my sponsorship role, and people go and do it. And when we go to get the renewals the following year from those sponsors, they're happy to do it because they feel the love and they get the support and they get value from the money they spend to sponsor the club. So, I think the sponsorship is in a good place. The Road Racing World Action Fund has been huge. John Ulrich and all of the consulting and guidance that we've gotten from him. And as I mentioned, very favorable payment terms and pricing on the air fence that we're getting is a key to us going back to the East track. It's a key to us going back to 5 rounds and 2-day racing. So definitely want to give a shout out to John and the whole Ulrich family and road racing world and the Road Racing World Action Fund specifically. You know, he said the other day he's on a crusade for air fence and safety. You know, it makes a big difference to all of us as riders. Want to just make sure everybody understands how important that is to us and how much support we're getting from John and Road Racing World Action Fund on that. You know, generally, I think, you know, closing comments, the feeling and the vibe in the club was really good last year, and I think getting better. People are excited to come race with us. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that come from around the region already that say, you know, you guys are our favorite club that we race with. You do a great job. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We try to learn from that and do better all the time, and we try and take people's input and do everything we can to keep making the club better and the process better. So, yeah, like I said, I had a good vibe and a good feeling all of last year. We're very excited for 2024. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. It's really good to be able to get the message out in this format. Totally appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say absolutely. Appreciate you coming on. For sure. We'll do everything we can to keep promoting it. Like you said, people that come in, we'll send them your way.
Yeah. I wanted to tag on with that. Board at USBA.com. Absolutely. Send them an email if you need to. If that feels scary, hit us up on Instagram at JKMoto Podcast. You can ask us any questions and we'll get you the answers. I know we've had people do that before. We'll either direct you straight over to them, but also we'll do, like, I can also read a rule book with you, and if if there's something in there that doesn't make sense to me and you, I'll email them. And
you escalated up to me.
Yeah, right. So we'll get to business.
We'll get it solved one way or the other. We'll get you some answers. The other email that we want to promote is airfence@utahsba.com. If anybody wants to support that cause and donate to our air fence fund, like I said, John's been very gracious. We still owe a significant amount of money towards what he's going to send us. So our air fence fundraising efforts are going to be ongoing for the foreseeable future. So anybody that's interested in supporting that, it's a good cause. It's tax deductible. You donate directly to the Road Racing World Action Fund. They're a 5013C, so it's tax deductible, and it goes to a good cause, which is the safety of all of us knuckleheads out there riding around.
Yeah, well, I'll say not only that, but, you know, Road Racing World Action Fund in general, road racing in the world, all over the world, in America, has to stay alive. Because if that doesn't stay alive, people don't race. And if people don't race, no one goes up to Moto America. If no one goes to Moto America, no one makes it. Eventually, like, it just goes up the chain. And so if that stuff dies off, then it all dies off, right? It starts with people buying motorcycles. You get to track days, you get to club racing, and then you just move up the chain from there. And if we take away anything at the bottom rungs, you know, as your base layer, everything else falls away.
And I agree with that 100%. And you're kind of looking up, but I also want to make sure we talk about that topic, looking down, or not down, but looking back towards street riders in the other direction, and that safety aspect of that whole thing, right? I mean, look, there's a group here in Salt Lake called the Motley Misfits. You may have heard of them. It's a group of sport bike riders that goes out and they ride really fast on the street. And I've ridden with them a couple times. I'm friends with a bunch of them, with most of them. I love those guys. I think they ride too fast on the street. So if our program, our club, and club racing and road racing and track days go away, that's less of an outlet for that group. And then that stuff starts going back to the street, right? So, Dustin Lance is our title sponsor, Utah Motorcycle Law. Dustin's been a longtime partner of the club. And Dustin, as a personal injury lawyer, has seen a lot of cases, a lot of injuries. And he actually came up with a term, and he's got it on our keychain tag that says, ride the street, race the track. And so a lot of us have kind of had a mission in the last couple of years, especially with these motley misfit groups, to get them to know that the track is there and to get them to come out and ride on the track and get it out of your system on the track, so you're not riding crazy on the street. And the street, faster you go, people get mad at you and they discourage you from going faster, and there's financial and health and law implications of that. The racetrack is a place where people encourage you to go faster, right?
You get a trophy.
The whole point of it, and everybody out there is geared towards helping you to go faster. So,
we're only going to push you further and further up.
let's get these guys to the track, and not just the motley misfits, right? Street riders in general. You'll be able to see what your sport bike is really capable of, without worrying about gravel or a truck in your lane or a cop or,
Yeah, if you had chicken strips on your tires, you won't anymore.
You can get rid of them at the track. we're wanting to help you do that. So
absolutely.
I agree with what you're saying, though. It's important to have us as a rung on the ladder moving up, but my also big concern is just like what Dustin said, is getting that mentality and that message out there to, ride the street and race the track, and get yourself out on the track and get it out of your system, so you don't have to ride like I don't want to say ride like an idiot on the street, but I'll say don't ride like an idiot on the street. Do it on the track and get it out of your system.
I did have a quick question kind of related to that. Your street GP series, if you will, it's not really a series, I guess, but class in your racing, is that something that does have a trophy at the end of the day, or a medal, or if I win the street GP race, do I get anything to go home with?
There's no trophy and there's no medal. Just by the logistics of that class, there's no transponder, so we're not tracking lap times and official results. Again, that's more of a mini version of the NRC and a way for you to put your toe in the water. Yeah. And once you get hooked and you're saying, I want to get more further into this, then you get your novice license and you start getting into the classes with points and results and medals.
Yeah. I will say I haven't done a ton of research yet, but I've been researching a little bit. As far as I know, that's a pretty unique class to have at a club racer level. So if you're, I met some people last year. I was at one of the USBA's rounds, and I met some people that they've never even done a track day, and they're out doing the street GP. But if you've been doing track days and you're like, I don't really want to go over the edge, let me try this. That's also right. So it's so open to everyone. It's a sweet way to do it.
That's the way we've kind of geared it with the training sessions and the classroom sessions and the control riders and stuff in the morning, is to try and get you, regardless of how much experience you have, get you that first taste and that first exposure to the race environment. Yeah, like I said, it's a loss leader for us. We give the first one away for free to try and get people to do it and continue to lower that barrier of what people think is needed to get on the track. And we've had a great turnout, and a lot of those people roll over into novice racing. So we're really happy with that program. It took us a long time. We've had the street GP class for probably 7 or 8 years, and it's really only in the last 3 or 4 years that it's started to get traction. No pun intended. There is a pun there, but it's something that we thought made sense, and our vision was this was what it would be to get people in their toe in the water. But it's taken a while, but it's finally starting to take off, and we're really excited about it.
Sweet.
Perfect. So, well, again, is there anybody, I know we don't have to go back to them again, but is there anybody else you'd like to thank before we end or shout out?
Tons of people, actually. James Riggs was president of our club before me. James had he was at the end of COVID and the one-day racing and the lack of air fence and negotiations with the track. And James put in endless hard work, and people weren't happy with some of the things that James did. But in the end, James left the club better than he found it, and in a pretty good, strong financial position. So big thanks to James for everything he did. Scott Ryberick, as I mentioned, was president of our club. He actually runs the Build Train Race program in Moto America now with Freddie Spencer. and Royal Enfield. And Scott was our president here, did great stuff, helped build our club, helped build up the culture, simplify a lot of the operations. He's been a big mentor to me. And so, yeah, big thanks to Scott always. YCRS, a lot of our curriculum in the education that we do is based on the YCRS program, which is awesome. I went to it in March last year down at Indy in Arizona. Just an awesome group of people, an awesome program. I learned so much. Instructors at that thing were like Stefano Mesa, heavy hitters, Kyle Wyman, like heavy hitters in our industry was personal instruction for me. So definitely thanks to YCRS for what they do to support us, and highly encourage people to check that out. Who else? The track I've mentioned multiple times tonight. Definitely appreciate the partnership, especially with Garrett Potter, who's the GM of the track. John Ulrich at Road Racing World, as I said, for the air fence, all of our sponsors. Sure, I'm forgetting people. I apologize. Shane Turpin, just because he's Shane. Yeah.
All right. That's fair. Well, again, we appreciated you coming on, and I learned a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Let me know what else we can do to help you, and definitely look forward to seeing this thing come out.
Yeah, absolutely. To all the listeners, thanks for being here. Once again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're in Utah, or now that they have 2-day racing anywhere nearby, I'd say within 12 hours, kind of that metric we mentioned, go check them out, get on there, take your license you already have, or go get a license, go race with them. It helps everyone out. Thanks, everyone, for being here. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.